We officially got word of Isaiah Likely's injury diagnosis and timeline on Wednesdays. He suffered a small fracture in his foot, but there is more Ravens injury news to report. We talk about the latest, Roquan Smith firing back at his critics, as well as more Ravens training camp updates. All that and more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here today, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We're free and available for you on all podcasting platforms. That includes in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, and an audio form where you can follow along and subscribe as well. 5 days per week here on Locked On Ravens, Monday through Friday, bringing you that daily Ravens coverage. Plus, we go live after every single piece of Ravens big news, like we did yesterday morning when the Isaiah Likely news broke. We also go live after every single Ravens game. We have bonus episodes sometimes over the weekend. And, of course, we have the Locked On Ravens Squad Show, which is live Mondays and Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And speaking of the Locked On Ravens Squad Show, here with us today, someone who is a member of the Squad Show, it is former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver and Super Bowl champion Qadry Ismail. And Q, it's been an interesting start to training camp. A lot of positives to report, some negatives mainly around injuries. Obviously, the big news of yesterday was Isaiah Likely fractured foot. He has a small fracture there. 6 to 8 weeks feels like the timeline that people are throwing around for him. We'll have Zay Flowers updates to get into in a couple of minutes here with his injury status. But, you know, you being out there at training camp, you seeing this, you seeing these guys work. Were you there and did you see the whole Isaiah Likely situation unfold? What was kind of your reaction to everything?
So it was interesting because from an Isaiah Likely aspect of part of camp, it was right at the last portion of yesterday's camp when they were doing one-on-ones. The receivers, tight ends were going up against the defensive secondary. And, yeah, like I didn't see what exactly happened and who he was going up against. But obviously I saw him get helped up on the cart and taken around the sideline to be taken into the locker room. So, yeah, like some tough news for sure, because I know for him it's a contract year. And the bigger picture is, you know, he's a premier player. And so anytime you have a premier player and you're game planning and you're preparing for the season, your expectation is, hey, this is what we can do against blah, blah, blah defense and all the things. Now you got to totally readjust things because one of your premier players, in this particular case, Isaiah Likely, goes down.
Yeah, and, you know, I'm glad that you're here talking about this with us today, because obviously you have a vast level of expertise, obviously, with missile training and missiletraining.com and everything that, you know, you have built over there. You have obviously a wide, vast knowledge. Like, the knowledge is there for you. So I want to ask you about just the specifics of this in particular. Obviously, he's going to have the surgery. We got the update from both Jeremy Fowler and Ian Rappaport. And then later, you know, Diana Rossini chimed in and she revealed that Likely is going to have surgery immediately to stabilize that small fracture. Also, she noted that both sides were optimistic that Isaiah Likely can return in early September. So this injury queue happening when it did, it's the end of July here as we record. He's going to have a decent amount of time to try to get back, maybe before week 1 or a little bit after that. What goes into recovering from an injury like this? And, you know, there's also the question of, in football, and you've talked about it, truly by the end of the year, no one is 100% healthy, right? The healthiest you're going to be is week 1, and then you kind of take your lumps and, you know, go through a physical grind of a season. Exactly. So for Isaiah Likely with this injury in particular, is this something that lingers? Is he going to be feeling it even after he gets back, or is this kind of just like, let it rest, let it heal, and he'll be as close to 100% as he can be by the time he gets back on the field?
There's so many complicated nuances to this. So there's no real answer that's like, yep, if he does this, everything's going to be fine. The injury, the surgery, how the surgery goes in regards to, are they the very fact that you're cutting into the skin and there's bleeding, any drop of blood is going to cause damage to the surrounding tissue. The fascia that covers the entire foot and throughout the body, well, that's being interrupted. Any nerve damage that could be looked at as a potential. Obviously, the bone itself, the periosteum, the bursa, all those factors, the connective tissue, the tendons, as much as you think that it's just an A to B thing, there's a lot more involved in it. And so, yes, the doctors are going to go through that process, but the rehab process is where if you can address all those things that I just mentioned, as far as the bursa, the ligaments, the tendons, the nerve, the periosteum, all the things that help you stabilize through the foot, sending obviously the signal from the brain back down into the foot, the proprioception of it all, and the subconscious of knowing like, oh yeah, I got this, no problem, versus, ooh, I don't know, I feel a little restriction. Getting the muscle groupings to fire in a not just slow twitch way, but a super fast twitch way. The inflammatory process, is the inflammatory process helpful? Heck yeah. But too much inflammation, there's a delicate balance, between too much and too little. You don't want to, spoil the apple cart, if you will. With that said, everybody else is still going on and they're playing at a full speed level. I'm not worried about my foot. I'm playing. I'm thinking tactics. I'm thinking game plan. I'm thinking recovery. He's thinking get back up to baseline. Well, once you're at baseline, whatever that might be, then you got to get reacclimated to what the system is. Then after that, you got to reintroduce yourself to what is that football feeling like? And it won't be hard, but it'll be challenging. And that's just how it is. That's the nature of the rehab process. So there's a lot that goes into it. His mental makeup is of vital importance, because if his mental makeup is tight and strong and he can overcome, okay, bravo, game on, let's go. So there's a lot that goes into it. His support system, how does he view it? All those things, that's what gets him over the top. Now, for me, I definitely understand that there's some cutting edge stuff that you can do, whether it be hyperbaric therapy, whether it be, other therapies that are available that are above board that you can do that's not going to draw any alerts to any testing that you might have. But there's some really strong things that you can do. FSM is one of them, frequency-specific microcurrent. There's a lot that you can do nutritionally. There's a lot that you can do supplementally that will help the body buffer itself to get it back up to where you need to be and get back out in the field a lot faster.
For you looking at Likely and kind of how he plays the game, because I think for everybody it's a little different in terms of how injuries can impact them based off of how they play. Where is the significance in this to you with how Likely actually goes out there and plays football?
So the tough part is from the tight end position, you're stopping another human that weighs as much as, or maybe a little bit more muscle / just overall body mass than you. And you're having to block that. And, or you're having that guy lean on you as you're going out into a route to try to disrupt your timing. That's a lot of force that's put on that foot. And so for Isaiah, it's, again, part of that return to play journey that he's going to be on. And at some point in time, it's going to be tested. The scar tissue is going to be scarring, and that, nerviness into the foot, the connective tissue disruption is going to be, presented. And so with that, you got to say to yourself, all right, I got this going on. Am I able to mentally fight through it? Or am I going to still be the same guy and you kind of hold back. It's a contract year. Leverage is king when you got it because it floats the other way. Leverage is king to the other side in the negotiation process. Clearly, the one guy who bet on himself, Joe Flacco, my God, he had a historic playoff run. Man, you had no choice. You're going to have to pay Joe Flacco at that time was the highest paid player. Lamar Jackson. Man, Daniel Jones got the bag of a bag. But Lamar was like, pump the brakes here, homeboy. He ain't even in my category. And it wasn't until collusion, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't until like the team, in this particular case, the Baltimore Ravens, had lost some leverage and realized, man, we got to pay this guy, that he now sits in the driver's seat as far as leverage because there's a salary cap. Leverage is king. And so health helps you as a player when it comes to leverage. Isaiah Likely has to factor those things in where he didn't have to necessarily factor those things in before. It was just, hey, I'm going out there and playing. I put up numbers. You're going to have to pay me because I got leverage. Now it's a new ball game. It's different.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, Q, something we've talked about, you and I, is I think Keaton Mitchell. That's another example of a guy that, had to work his way back. And I know it's different, knee versus foot, all the things that go into that and the severity and whatnot, but still it's kind of the same conversation that like Keaton had to kind of work his way back, trust himself, trust his body again. And some players, they can just kind of snap back into it. Like it's boom, you're good, you're ready to go. Other players, it does take more time. We don't know how likely he's going to respond. Luckily for them, the injury does happen early enough in training camp to the point where he does have a shot to return in week 1. We will see, though, with that. And coming up in the second part of the show, we'll round out our Isaiah Likely conversation as well, is diving into some Zay Flowers injury updates. So stay tuned. Plenty to dive into on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies, just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or even off of it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. And I come from an avid golf family. I've seen my fair share of ridiculous shots, holes in one. You got from the rough to the green, and that energy boost that 5 Hour Energy gives you, it is incredible. Golf's all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5 Hour Energy shots today. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Qadry Ismail still diving into Ravens updates. It's been a pretty busy time for updates, whether it is training camp, practice news and notes, injuries, unfortunately, like we saw with Isaiah Likely. And I mentioned to you at the end of that first segment how it's about that 6 to 8 week timeline. John Harbaugh kind of said, yeah, that sounds about right for him. For you with this type of an injury, is that on par for you? And would you expect, if it's just a general recovery, right? Obviously, there are a lot of other factors. But let's just assume it's the general average recovery from an injury like this. Would you expect him out there in week 1, or would you maybe expect them to play it the cautious route, maybe hold him out week 1, maybe week 2 against Cleveland, and maybe he comes back in week 3 against Detroit? What's kind of your timeline for this?
I would say it would be closer to the 8-week mark because of the X factor of I'm in a contract situation. I'm a mega talented, budding superstar. Salary cap is only going to go up. I'm young. If this team is a Super Bowl ready team, why am I trying to come back now? I can earn a significant amount if I'm full on healthy. Okay, if the Ravens try to do whatever, I get to that free agent market. Oh, you best believe there are going to be some teams that are going to be looking at me and like, yo, we want Isaiah Likely. They're going to be looking at me if I'm banged up. So the bottom line is that, yeah, that factors into the larger equation. Is it a scenario where I know if I wait and I come back healthy to the point where there's no restriction and I am just running free? Well, gosh, it becomes a scenario where once the season gets going, and if the Ravens do like they're capable of doing, and they get into the playoffs and Isaiah Likely is on that football field, who cares what happened in the beginning of the year? Bruh, now my negotiation power and leverage, it increased back to where it was. And that's something that will factor into all this whole play of healing.
It hurts their offense will likely not being out there, but I think that they will be okay. Another injury cue. Zay Flowers was not out at practice on Wednesday. Apparently, all the headlines were Isaiah Likely on Tuesday, with the cart coming out and whatnot. Apparently, he was kind of favoring his leg/knee area towards the end of Tuesday's practice, didn't participate in that final drill that you were talking about with the tight ends and the receivers and whatnot. He was not practicing on Wednesday, and John Harbaugh talked about kind of his situation after practice and said that for Flowers, it's a camp type thing. So I guess take that as it will. Harbaugh kind of classified that as something that you need to not go out on for a few days, but should be back in a few days. So for you, Q, did you see what happened to Zay? Did you notice him kind of limping around out there? Was there anything that kind of caught your eye with that situation?
They were in a team situation portion of practice, and you saw him walk off the sideline irritated, threw down the helmet, didn't necessarily slam it or anything, outrageous. Let's not get crazy. But he did. He, put his helmet down. He has a sheezy on, and, he's, you can just see he's irritated. He's pissed. He's salty. He's like, what's going on? And, he kind of shoved off, not necessarily shoved off, but he wasn't exactly like, oh, okay, trainer, come to me. He's just like, leave me alone. Let me figure this out. And as the period ended, he was one of the last guys. Like, this dude is Energizer Bunny. He's always jogging from one drill to the next. He's always one of the first guys that goes to, one portion of the practice to the other portion of the practice. That's the true leadership of what you would expect from a guy, and especially a Pro Bowler now, in his third year, all those things. Like, he's becoming more and more that vet pros pro, right? Walking gingerly. And that's when I was like, ooh. And so me and some of our other colleagues, we just kind of noted it. And yeah, he was favoring a portion of his leg. Didn't necessarily give it totally away, but from what I saw and what I could tell, you could see where it wasn't quite there. And it was like, And so he just kind of went over to that last portion of the practice where, Isaiah unfortunately had the foot fracture. So I think it is camp. It is going to be 3 days in a row of heat in full pads. And again, it's just a battle of attrition. You're trying to keep, everything together and make sure you're on point. But that's Zay Flowers. And, again, his game is built on explosive quickness, super fast muscle fibers. They fatigue quicker than slow twitch muscle fibers. All I'm saying is that in this particular case, for him, it is one of those cases where you want to err on the side of caution before bringing him back out, because he's such a dynamic player, and you don't want to put it in a scenario where now all of a sudden it's affecting him later on in camp, and then it becomes a thing during the regular season.
Yeah, there's no reason to rush these guys back at this point. 100% being cautious is the correct way to go with that. And then you also had an update about Jalen Armour Davis, who apparently the MRI came back positive. So nothing serious. John Harbaugh said there, it's a camp thing. I guess that's the new term we're using here, Q. John Harbaugh, the camp thing injuries that the Ravens have this season. So we'll see what that ends up meaning, how many days camp things result in players missing. But Q, Roquan Smith, Roquan last season started slow. We all know it. We all saw it. Got it together as the year went on, and I think looked a lot more like the Roquan Smith that we all became accustomed to over the course of his first couple of years with the Ravens. Well, Roquan Smith was called out by an anonymous NFL defensive assistant that said that he needed to get in better shape and he looked sluggish at times. Well, Roquan Smith went on, pardon my take, and he was asked about his thoughts on these comments. And he said, quote, obviously it's not to my standard, but I was an all-pro, if I'm not mistaken, Pro Bowl as well. Yesterday is the past. Tune in this coming season and we'll see. Normally people who are anonymous want to be anonymous for a reason. So that tells you who they are. So Roquan with a little clap back at the critics. I love the fire. I love the energy from him. And look, I think that it's great that Roquan acknowledges it. And then he acknowledges the fact that, hey, look, I got better. I worked through it and I played up to my standard. But I want to hear from you, Q, about how he looks. There's been a lot of conversation about what he was going to be coming into camp, how he was going to approach it, what he was going to look like. Seems like from all I've read up on and heard, Roquan has really took it upon himself this offseason to get into really good shape, to stay in really good shape. But I want to hear your thoughts on it. How does Roquan look so far during this training camp?
Yeah, it's interesting because last training camp, he looked like he put on weight, looked like he was whatever. Was it strategic in that, man, if I put on more weight, I can be more at the point of attack? That's one thing. Is it I put on weight because I put on weight and I didn't get into the type of shape that I needed to? What I will also say, because we don't know, and we will probably never know, but what I'll also say is from a last year, early part of the season standpoint, I know it was Roquan taking on a lot when it came to that defense, trying to settle in and the defensive personnel get everything in order, a.k.a. Trent Simpson getting benched and they bringing in two other guys to kind of hold everything down. So the high tide was just too much for him. Now, for where we're seeing him now, man, I mean, he looks like he's Roquan of old with regards to his weight and him flying around. And I think that that's a good thing. I think for him, if I'm flying around, I'm feeling really good. Okay, everybody else, y'all got to follow me. Let's go. I think this is a fast-flowing defense that if the defensive front can represent, we're going to see a Roquan Smith of old where, boy, remember that Saints game when he first came in and he was just like,
oh, yeah,
diagnosing the defense or the offense, and he was just like slashing in, cutting behind the pulling guard, making tackles for losses and all that. I mean, I think that's what the expectation is when we see Roquan in the second year of Zach Orr's defense as Zach Orr gets better as a defensive coordinator, play caller.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm really excited for Roquan this season. You mentioned the Saints game and just how he looked there. I mean, that is the expectation for sure. And, when Roquan is at his best, this defense is at their best. So for him, he is that guy. He's the leader in the middle of that defense. And the Ravens have multiple leaders, but he is a really big, important part of what they do. Coming up, though, in the final part of the show, we're going to get Q's thoughts on training camp practice on Wednesday, what he's seen out there at Owings Mills. And you know what? I might just let him talk about TJ Tampa for a little bit, too. I think I have to after the practice that TJ Tampa had on Wednesday. So stay tuned. We got plenty coming up on Locked On Ravens. First, this show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building your wealth. And I've been really trying to save. That's been a financial goal I've been really getting serious about. Monarch helps me with that in a lot of different ways. Having everything in one app makes it really easy to manage money day to day. Plus, with all my accounts and spending in one place, it makes everything so much better. And to me, I've looked at my spending sometimes. I'm fast at how a lot of it can add up. So saving, to me, it's really important, and Monarch is helping me get there. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher, Qadry Ismail. We're still rocking out with you here on this Wednesday. All right, Q, I'm going to get my popcorn ready. I'm going to sit back, relax, and I'm ready to hear your thoughts. And I'm going to throw out the name TJ Tampa. You can talk about others as well, but what have you seen from TJ Tampa, and what did you see from the team on Wednesday?
Okay, so let me just even backtrack and say the day before Wednesday, it's called Tuesday. And so at Tuesday's practice, when you're talking about being in pads, well, Jaire Alexander wasn't in, so we had to go ahead and go to the next guy, TJ Tampa. Back-to-back days where 2-7 was out there, locking it down. There was and I don't recall, I definitely know Tez Walker was one of them. Tez is my guy too, so this was a tough one for me. But before we get to him, I don't recall who was the receiver on the route, but TJ literally, it was a comeback where the receiver is pushing up around 15 to 18 and breaks it to the sideline. It's a deep comeback route. TJ was all over it. As a matter of fact, I had to do a double take in that when TJ was there. Like, I was like, oh, wow. That DB read the route and did it with such poise. The reason why he did it with such poise because it was number 27 and the last name said TJ Tampa on the back of the jersey. To my boy Tez Walker, who Tez was doing Tez-like things in back-to-back practices. However, one-on-ones, it was 2-7 and going up against 8-1. This was tough for me. It was hard. KO, you know I love me some Tez Walker. He's my guy. You know I am all about TJ Tampa. And at the same time, it's even tougher because I'm all about the wide receivers. But man, one-on-one, great route, sold it. TJ Tampa stride for stride, incomplete pass. Okay, they come back. This time, TJ Tampa, one-on-one, Tez Walker again. And I love the moxie and the discipline of the route. It was a kind of stutter, go, stop. Stutter, go, stop. Usually the DB gets out of sorts. Tez created separation, snatched the ball out of the air, but dang it, it was incomplete. And yay, it was incomplete. So my offensive side of me was like, dang it. But my defensive side of me, TJ Tampa, was like, yo, bro, that was dope. That was some good stuff. And so what we saw was literally Tez snatched the ball out of the air with his hands really well. But then what we also saw was the punch out before he was able to secure the catch and turn up field. So we saw a lot of that. And then we also saw throughout the rest of practice some really good plays where the quarterbacks, there was some pressure in their face, but they had nowhere to go because when it went to 2-7 side, homeboy had it on lock. So it was like throughout practice, TJ Tampa was showing up.
Man, I love it. I love it. The depth is crazy in the Ravens secondary and the Ravens cornerback room. Another guy who apparently made waves, Q, was Chidobe Awuzie. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts were on him. DeAndre Hopkins has apparently looked really good, and he's somebody that, has had these spectacular catches, but they're either out of bounds or OPIs. He's come down with some of them in bounds, but the spectacular ones. And I guess we're counting the OPI one here on Locked On Ravens because we decided to do that on the squad show. But, at the end of the day, it feels like there are a lot of other players stepping up. Is there anybody else who caught your eye on Wednesday or just any of the days you've been out there?
Yeah, Travis Jones. You gotta really give love to the D lineman. I think for him and Broderick Washington, Just them showing up in my football eye. You look at a drill, you're seeing that, there's a lot of noise going on with the O-line, D-line, working on schemes, but you see 98, you see 98, you see 96, you see 98, see 90, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, that's good. Awuzie, absolutely. He had some really good coverage. Like there was one where, was it 86? I think also Wade. And then it might have been that was Miller and Jaire Alexander. Real quick. Now I get back to Awuzie. They were going one-on-one. It was gorgeous, like just offense versus defense, defensive back versus receiver, going down the football field, and Lamar threw a great pass. And it was, it was great coverage, but it was just off the tip. And then, Miller was able to snatch it. So competitively, he goes back up there. And all of a sudden, whoa, quick jams. Anthony Miller stunned it at the line of scrimmage. It was a quick game pass. I think it was Cooper, but it could have been still Lamar. So he threw it anyway, and he snatched it out of the air. But, it's one-on-one, so it's not going to be, Jaire won the rep, but he still caught the pass. And so, as a receiver, like, you got me. I caught it, but you got me. Like, that's unrealistic to think that, that could happen in the game. No, it can't. He got you. You're not going to get the ball. Awuzie was just showing up today. He was just showing up. Like, he was like, okay, boom, knock the ball down. Oh, okay, right there, boom. Incomplete pass. Oh, no, another incomplete pass. He was disciplined with his technique. I thought that was a good kind of Chuck Pagano-y type of, we all working. We working. I think that was something that was really cool. The linebackers that were like, them youngins were balling.
Oh, like Chandler Martin,
Jake Hummel, Teddy Buchanan. Like those dudes, they were doing their thing. Chandler Martin, Jay Higgins was in the mix as well. Like there were some schemes. They were scheming some stuff, and they didn't look lost at all. Like they were. I'm excited for preseason with the Colts, the joint practice and the games as far as like what's going to go on with the games. Like I'm telling you right now, this is a scenario where like you're going to be like, yo, this is the real deal. Like I think from a bigger picture standpoint, man, like Trent Simpson, you're doing your thing, but you best believe don't get comfortable. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me with the defense, like I'm pumped for all these young guys stepping up, making impacts. I mean, apparently, I don't even like the Ravens scoring system. Jeff Zrebiec put out that the defense won the practice 63-36. And he said it didn't even feel that close, like it was that dominant of a day on defense for the Ravens. Like in that, apparently, like his defense wins the day again. You also hear about some of the offensive players. Apparently, LeJontay Westerque had his best day of training camp. So really positive things you can take away. But Q, that's all I have for you. Appreciate you hopping on. Please, before you get out of here, tell people where they can find you and what you're working on with missile training and everything you got going on.
Yeah, man, I tell you what, it's fun to talk about missile training and missiletraining.com. There's a lot that missile training has to offer for human movement and sports performance training. So if you are looking for team, individual, doesn't matter the age, doesn't matter the sport, we got you covered for all your sports performance and human movement training. Got a couple of families going into the grandparents, and everybody is sitting there saying how they absolutely love the way I can tailor them a protocol to help them move better. So missiletraining.com, come interact with me. Love to be able to tell you what we got going on. Love the recovery work that we got going on for you as well. When it comes to football, we got love this year for WJZ's programming. You're going to see me on my purple shows, really cool stuff that we got going on in the mix. Every single week, Locked On Ravens and the Squad Show. You're going to see Kevin Oestreicher and I. We're just breaking it down. We're just talking shop. We don't got to guess about stuff. See, that's where Kevin gets me because he's a master at like the pontification of what can do as far as looking ahead. Man, but once football season starts, now I feel like I can talk some shop with my boy Kevin Oestreicher and feel like I can hold my own because we're talking football. But we love it. It's fun. It's passionate. And we recognize, don't take ourselves too seriously, but we love to interact and talk some good football with you, the fan.
Yeah, absolutely. We have fun with it. It's always a blast having you, Q. I appreciate you as always. All the links to Q's work in the description down below. And be sure to check him out. He does awesome stuff. And, of course, you'll see both of us back here later tonight on the Squad Show. We'll be rocking it out 7:30 p.m. Eastern time with you. So be sure you tune in for that live. And, of course, we'll be back here with the regular Locked On Ravens program tomorrow. So be sure to stay tuned for all that. Hit the like and subscribe button on the way out in YouTube and follow along and subscribe in audio form. And I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.